Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Board Game Blog number 11. This is for August 1st, 2013. Gen Con is about 2 weeks away. I just wanted to get a little bit of video down. It's been 2 weeks since I did my last blog, and I had lots of different things kind of running through my brain. So I want to do a small little Gen Con preview. I actually did an extremely long Gen Con preview with Lance Meister. If you don't, that doesn't ring a bell, that's Undead Viking. He does a lot of video reviews. If you go to Undead Viking videos on YouTube, or look him up on Board Game Geek, you can find a lot of his videos that he does. We do a podcast together once every blue moon. I think we've done maybe 15 episodes over the last year and a half, so not a lot, but we do kind of turn them out every once in a while. We did about a 4-hour Gen Con preview where we went through the entire list of it's on Board Game Geek, provided by Eric Martin. It's a geek list of everything that he knows about and is confirmed is either going to be there for sale or in demo form. So if you want an exhaustive list, go to that. I know some other folks are going to be coming out with videos probably when you see this or in the next week or two, probably some more detailed videos. But I wanted to just do a little small footnote, maybe a little bit of a different take in this video, as well as just a couple things that have been going through my head. So I'll leave those to the end as far as the Gen Con previews type of thing goes. But it's just that they're kind of an interesting point in the hobby. I was kind of going back and forth with another video reviewer friend of mine, and he was kind of saying, Gen Con's not that exciting. Everything's on Kickstarter nowadays, so it's kind of ruining the hobby a little bit, maybe possibly, ruining some of these special events where board games are normally released, and there's some excitement, some hype, and people can get their hands on it immediately, play it, and try it out. So I do think that there is a strange kind of drama that surrounds buying a board game, at least at this particular moment in time. We just saw the Doom that came to Atlantic City. Well, Doom came to that Kickstarter project where the guy that ran the project basically backed out, said he ran out of money for whatever reasons, whether he spent it correctly or not. I don't want to get too much into that, but that game's not going to get made. A lot of people were excited to play. It's not a game I really was interested in at all, but it got a lot of money, like $120,000, and then he backed out. But then, just today, like not a few hours before I started recording this video, Cryptozoic stepped in and said, hey, we're going to make the game, we're going to give it to all of the backers, we're going to honor their pledges, we're not going to charge them anymore, we're going to make extra copies, it sounds like, to sell, normally through normal distribution. And I was just thinking, man, what kind of drama is this where I have to go through this? I mean, I didn't pledge with this particular thing, but I'm watching it, and it's like, what kind of drama do you have to go through to obtain a board game these days, And a lot of it is to, not necessarily to blame Kickstarter, but just to kind of blame that phenomenon and that sort of environment that we're currently in. It's just pretty funny that, to me, that there's just so many kind of different odd things happening where it's strange because it's all internet driven, and the internet has really sort of driven the hobby and exploded the hobby. Beyond what it was, let's say, in the 90s, versus, the internet started becoming more popular in the 90s and then, into the 2000s. And board game sales have gone up every year, I think like 10% or something like that. So the internet's really provided a platform for distributing board games and, providing board game information. These videos, I mean, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. There's a lot of other video reviewers too. We're able to make a video, you can watch it, whether it's 10 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever, and go, oh, okay, I know how the rules work, or maybe I like this guy's and his opinion, so I skip to the review, and okay. And the internet's kind of provided that, forum for everybody to trade information and Board Game Geek. But now it's like providing all this crazy drama, and it's funny because, I'm on Board Game Geek a lot, I'm on YouTube, and I watch everybody, listen to everybody. But when I go to my game group, I mean, there's no drama there. We maybe mentioned, did you see that Doom that came to Kickstarter? We just joke around about it and BS with each other. But when we sit down to play a game, it's just fun, it's interactive, and all that stuff dissolves. And it's such a strange dichotomy to me of this. On the one hand, you have this sort of, hyper drama, about games and releases, and it's the internet in general kind of magnifies the intensity of things. So you couple that with your regular playing, like I'll sit down and play Ticket to Ride with my wife, or or play a game with my kids or my folks or somebody, and it's very peaceful and nice, and we chat a little bit about the day and the things happening, and the game happens. So it's just a strange dichotomy with this hobby versus the playing of the game, the experience of the game, versus like this consumerism that's just kind of like really kind of wild and nutty right now. So that was just kind of going through my head. I just thought it was kind of weird. The other thing is, it kind of will lead in now to the Gen Con preview stuff, is I've kind of noticed just, and let me try to back up a little bit here. So, recently I've kind of started doing more negative reviews. Like when I started, I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't really know how to talk about games. Maybe I still don't. So, I never did negative reviews out the gate, and I don't think most people probably should. You should talk about the ones that you like and maybe the ones that you love and you really have sort of a fascination that you adore, because that's the one you're going to be excited to talk about. But recently, as you kind of play lots and lots of games, if you're a reviewer or just somebody that is really, doesn't need to necessarily write reviews, but you just, you play a lot of games and you consume them quickly and you get a lot of plays in, and then you move on to the next thing. The glut of games starts to give you a little bit of a different perspective. And this is kind of ties into Kickstarter. We're in release season now with Gen Con. It's interesting because I'll come in at some games where the perception is very difficult sometimes to lay down and put down on paper or on video, because I'm trying to start with an example and kind of pull back to reality here. So let's say I'm in a bad mood and I play a game and I'm like, this game sucks, right? It just didn't do anything for me. It was kind of just like this other game, and boom, I want to give it a negative review because whatever, I have a negative experience with the game. And a lot of that is based on the fact that I've played so many. It's like, oh, this is just like this, but it's not as good, or the theme isn't as attractive as the other ones was. And I think I've gotten some feedback. So this is where this is coming from. I've gotten some feedback, about my negativity, and I don't mean it to be like personally attacking a negative, and that's one of the reasons I never did a negative review for a while, is because mainly people say, oh, you want review copies or whatever. That's bull. I like getting them, of course, because I don't have to pay for them and their games are expensive, but I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. You know what I mean? Like, really, that sounds sappy, but it's like, man, I know how much work these people put in, and the games have been in development for years. They sweated over the production and the art and all that stuff. And so that's a creative endeavor, and I know how much people can put into that, and to sort of just come at that and shoot it down is a bad thing. It's not like they're providing me with a product necessarily, and this kind of gets back to that dichotomy. Yes, it's a product. I paid money for it. If I want to look at it super analytically, market-wise, Randian kind of thing, I paid money. I should expect to get this and that for it. But I want to take a step back from that, and there's that dichotomy between consumerism and sort of that just natural game experience that is about everything that we're all about, is interacting with friends and having fun and maybe role playing a little bit. But it's like there are so many games now, just so many coming out. You need to be able to feel free to express a negativity to something, even if it doesn't really jive with somebody else. I think you need to be free and able to say, I don't like this, and I don't like this for these reasons, and that doesn't necessarily mean the game is going to be bad for anybody else. And I think that's something that people forget, is that, when I or somebody else come out and basically kind of blast the game, I try not to get too personal, but, I kind of get wrapped into an emotion sometimes and go a little bit further. I don't think I've been ridiculous with anything negative, but it's like, I think people need to be able to express, I don't like that. And that's one thing that I feel like sometimes, not just with board games, with geek culture, is like if I say I don't like, I'm trying to think of something I don't really like Doctor Who. I haven't watched a lot of it. A lot of people like Doctor Who. I think it's dumb. I don't know. But I'm not trying to say you're stupid for liking Doctor Who. But I think people should be able to say, okay, I don't like this, and then, step away from it. Don't harp on it. But I think because there's such a glut of information, being able to define, I think personally for yourself and for other people around you, it's very important to say, I don't like this is why I don't like it, and then move on, and not necessarily get attacked for it because, oh, you didn't do it right, you didn't play the game right, or you didn't watch enough episodes of Doctor Who. Well, no, there's just so much information. Doctor Who may be fine, but to me, compared to so much other science fiction, to me, it doesn't even hold a candle, for example, you know. And recently I reviewed Quicks, which is a Spiel des Jahres nominee. And it's a little dice game. I don't really like it. It's not, to me, there's way more choice in the Zularedo dice game if you play with 2 players. When you play 3 and 4, it's not as great. But Zularedo dice with 2 players is very interesting. And there seems like there's less going on in there. Anyway, so my point is I think that there probably should be more negativity come out. Not in the sense of we're trying to destroy the designer or the company or say that they make bad things and they're not quality people who put a lot of effort and sweat in. It's just that I think that there needs to be boundaries. You don't have to like everything and all that stuff. I think you should be respectful and all that stuff. So I'm kind of talking all over the place, but I think you get my point there. I think people should be able to express, don't like this, these are my problems with it, I hate it, it sucks, you know. Just be like, you know, express it out there and people should be able to take it and leave it because, you know, it's their own personal thing. They should be that secure in what they love or what they like. You know, I'm talking more outside of board games, but just with geekiness stuff. So that's just something I see a trend in, and I think we can come to an equilibrium. And I feel like the board game hobby is kind of maturing. I think in large part thanks to Jesse Dean's article on A Few Acres of Snow. That really triggered a lot of different things that I see happening, you know, on Board Game Geek. With the Voice of Experience reviews, and then, you know, the Longview podcast, which I've been a part of, you know, but I think that has also driven it. And then we've also seen some more in-depth stuff, even from like Tom Vassell and the guys at the Dice Tower, you know, doing different things. I don't know that that was necessarily driven by Jesse, but it seemed like that. If you could point to a moment where the hobby maybe made a little bit of a step, you know, it would be Jesse and Tabletop, you know, or something, where it's kind of getting to a point where we can be able to talk about it. And talk about it in a legitimate way. Anyway, so that kind of brings me into sort of a Debbie Downer moment here with Gen Con. And I say that kind of jokingly because everybody's previewing all these Gen Con games. And so I thought, well, maybe this is an interesting thing. Let me try to tamp down my hype a little bit and pick a couple of games that I'm really excited about. But then a couple that in the back of my mind, truthfully, I'm going to have probably an issue with, or they may be an issue that I don't know about, because I've read the rules for these things and I've looked at the pieces and kind of worked it out in my head, but in the back of my mind I'm like, okay, there could be an issue here that I'm going to not like, and maybe I'll end up, you know, giving a negative review or whatever, maybe just not reviewing it because I'm not really, you know, I'm kind of wishy-washy on it. I don't like to do a wishy-washy review. Anyway, but so first thing that's I'm going to point out that may be an issue here is just a simple thing, is you've got Robinson Crusoe and you have Naufragos, or it's called Castaways in English. I've looked at those. Those are behemoths of games. They're very story-driven, cooperative kind of things. They're both have the sort of castaway, you know, desert island kind of isolation theme. But they're very, very big and beefy games. And I don't know that for a co-op they're actually going to work very well with either of the groups that I play with. So I think that I may end up playing those solitaire and being okay with them, but I think there'll be a little bit of a disappointment, you know, for me if they end up being very fiddly and overly complex and things like that. So those two are kind of minor ones that I kind of put together. But I just kind of throwing in that because people kind of go in with like, "Ooh, this is going to be great," and then kind of overlook and get dizzied by all this crazy stuff that's coming out. And so that's part of the review process is, you know, it's difficult because if you buy into the hype and you go in with hype-filled glasses and you like the game and it lasts you 3-4 plays and you really like it, but then you get like the 10th player like, oh, I don't like it. So should you have reviewed it negatively when you reviewed it after the 3rd play? Maybe, but it's difficult. So I think I'm just trying to express that so that anybody that watches my videos and cares enough you know, about this kind of stuff will kind of get that idea from me, because, you know, you play a game 3-4 times and then on your 5th time it like falls on its face and then you're like, oh, I gave that a good review. Anyway, so those are the first two. The next one is the Star Trek Attack Wing. Very excited about that. I watched Tom Vassell's video on that and read the rules to it now, and I'm very excited about the multiplayer possibilities with that, and it seems a little bit more configurable, at least out of the gate, than X-Wing was. X-Wing has a lot of, you know, expansions coming out, and so it's a lot more swappable and configuring with the different characters and abilities you can throw on the stuff. But this one's coming out with like, what, a base set and then like 8 other ships or something, and all, you know, you can play as different factions, not just Rebel versus Empire. But the problem with this is, it won't be a problem for me, but it may be a problem getting it played, and I don't know. I haven't really talked to my group about it, but I've talked to other people about it, and the model paint job seems very much less than stellar, okay? I mean, especially when you compare it to X-Wing, which is just above and beyond component-wise. So, I don't know, I feel like there's a sort of blandness to the cards, and there always is kind of a blandness to the UI and the graphic design of Star Trek games. I mean, even some of the old Star Trek games I used to play on the PC, I can't think of one, but there was one that was like a shooter, like Call of Duty or something, and the UI was actually really bland and stuff, and none of my friends at that time wanted to play it because they just couldn't get into it. It was actually an excellent game, and the UI actually kind of grew on you because it was very clean, and you know, it wasn't too cluttered, and it was very easy to read all the numbers and the abilities and things. So that's another one that's kind of a minor deal there. The next one is trains coming out from AEG. Now, the problem that I think I might end up having with this one is, from what I have seen, it's very, very much a Dominion clone. Now, yes, there's a board, and you've got routes and different stations that you're trying to put out on the board, which is totally different. But from what I see, all of the actual card abilities are almost exact copies of what was in the Dominion base set. So, and I played Dominion to death. I mean, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of times. And I don't want to go through that again, and my fear is that the board will be very much of a tacked on experience. But I know that AEG has made some changes. I don't know what they are, but they've made some changes to the cards, and I think added some different cards. I don't know how much they've changed with the board. So sort of to balance hopefully it's not just a straight Dominion clone. There aren't really any other deck building games with a board. Other than a few Acres of Snow, I don't really consider Mage Knight a deck building game. And I guess Fantastica, which I haven't played, is very much a deck building game. But to me, this may be, you know, it may end up being too simple, just basically lots of cards to draw cards and all that stuff. So I'm definitely going to look at it, probably going to pick it up. That's another one. It's like, boy, I hope this isn't Dominion, you know, with a board and that stuff. So that's another one that is very much, I'm very cautious on this one, how good this one will actually be. And I know a lot of people are really hyped about it. But those cards, from what I understand, is basically just like the Dominion cards. It could be, you know, might be a little bit of exaggeration, but I think it's pretty close to that. Now the last one is probably the game that I'm most looking forward to, I think. It's right at the top of the list, top 2 or 3 at least. And that's the Pathfinder adventure card game. And I've looked at the rules, read the rules a couple of times. I've watched, there's a great video by Watch It Played, Rodney Smith, where he went to GTS Distribution Day, and the guys from Paizo were there demonstrating it. But this one is also, I'm a little afraid this might be a little bit simple, because you basically, in the game, you flip a card at a location where you're at, maybe an event card or something, and then you encounter it. Probably roll some dice, apply some different abilities from your character, and then move on. Now, that's interesting and scary at the same time, because as you play, you're going to add cards to your deck and find items. And you're going to be able to play it over a very long campaign with, you know, additional booster packs and things. So that's cool, but if it's almost like if it's too much like an RPG that's just card driven and it's basically ends up being like a giant scenario generator, you know, basically removing the DM, I don't think I'm going to really like it that much. Now, if they really take the card aspect of it and make those, you know, hand management decisions and the decisions of what you're going to add to your deck, and you know how the flow of the game is going to happen with the different encounters. Okay, so if me and you go over here and I play this and it's going to combo good with your card, and then we've got to really make a decision where it's like a certain types of monsters will require different kinds of abilities and effects. Where if everything is just like I play a card and roll a die, then it's going to kind of fall flat a little bit for me. I may still kind of like it, but I think it may start, hopefully somebody else will be able to build on top of it if it ends up being that flat. And really building something where it's very much a card-driven game, and the card play is really, you know, it gets a lot of focus and a lot of attention, and then if you can extend it over sort of a campaign. Now, one game that kind of does that is Sentinels of the Multiverse. Now, there isn't a straight campaign across it, but I thought they were going to do some kind of campaign, because they basically have a beginning, middle, and end to all of the expansions, and they are coming to an end with that sort of story arc, if you will. So I don't know if there's a way to play that as a campaign. I know there's no, you know, getting cards and then adding to your deck and then improving for the next encounter or the next adventure. There's nothing like that in there. But I think this will be an interesting game, probably the most interesting of the con, because it's really trying to break new ground. It's an RPG, kind of a deck building game. So I think this is the one I'm most excited for, but I'm also a little bit trepidatious if it ends up being too simplistic. Because, I mean, the thing that a role-playing game has over a card game is we can sit around and the game is like up here, right? It's not down here in the cards. It's up here, so the lack of, strategy in that is made up for big time by the, abundance of story and banter at the table. Where I think this maybe hits too little bit in the middle. And yeah, you can still have a story. I mean, like I said before, I can make Power Grid a role-playing game. I'm probably the only person on earth that thinks about that. But so you will be able to role-play a little bit, I think, with the card game as it is. But we'll see. That's what I'm trepidatious about. Basically, those 5 games. There's other games I'm really looking forward to: Spyrium, Maximum Throwdown, a couple others. I made some geek lists. Maybe I'll link those in the description underneath here. But so I just wanted to kind of muse a little bit. I know it went a little bit longer than I thought it was, but it's just sort of a perspective, sort of a reviewer's perspective, anticipation going into Gen Con, trying to tamper that expectation, and then and then earlier I talked about sort of the dichotomy of Kickstarter consumerism versus experience and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so that's just kind of some stuff I've been thinking about, and so you probably won't see a blog from me until after Gen Con, but at Gen Con I will definitely be uploading videos quote unquote live from the convention. I'm going to start doing demo videos on Tuesday even, and then getting some of those queued up, and then you'll be able to start seeing those. Maybe I'll release them Wednesday night, Thursday morning. And so for those of you that aren't there, I'm going to try to capture some stuff, get some demos of some of the stuff that is not quite being released, but it's being demoed. Like, Freedom Underground Railroad is being, I'll get a demo of that, and they'll have fresh copies there. And I'll probably actually get an in-play review of that, which is the other kind of video. I'll probably be doing more of those, is like playing with some folks and, recording our quick impressions. And then, giving you maybe like a 2-minute, like, this is how the game works or something, just so you have an idea what we're talking about. So I got some folks that are interested to contribute, just play, and then I think some of them said they don't mind being on video, so that might be kind of cool. And also Lance Meister on Dead Viking, he's going to be making videos. We'll probably throw a geek list up, maybe Thursday or Wednesday night, and then we'll start adding those. And so that'll kind of happen throughout the weekend at the convention. So anyway, I'll see you guys on the other side of Gen Con. Thanks.